At my youngest daughter's college graduation, in front of 300 people, Sophia stood up during my speech and screamed, "I hate you," before storming out of the auditorium. The room went silent. Everyone stared. I quietly finished my speech, congratulated the graduates, and left with as much dignity as I could manage. But what I discovered when I got home that night would reveal that Sophia's outburst wasn't about teenage rebellion or family drama. It was a desperate warning, and by the time I understood what she was really trying to tell me, 3 people were already dead. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The morning that started it all. The alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. in my small apartment in Riverside Falls, Oregon. Today was the day I'd been looking forward to for 4 years, Sophia's graduation from Northwestern State University. My little girl was finally getting her degree in forensic psychology, and I'd been asked to give the commencement address to her graduating class. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, adjusting the navy blue tie that matched the suit I'd bought specifically for this occasion. At 52, I'd started noticing the gray threading through my dark hair, the lines around my eyes that hadn't been there when my wife Isabella was still alive. But today wasn't about getting older. Today was about celebrating how far Sophia and I had come since we lost Isabella 8 years ago. The drive to Northwestern State usually took me 3 hours, but I'd made it countless times over the past 4 years. Every month, sometimes more, I'd drive up from Riverside Falls to take Sophia to dinner, help her with whatever she needed, and make sure she was adjusting well to college life. After Isabella died when Sophia was just 14, it had been crucial for me to stay involved. She was all I had left. But something had been different lately. Over the past few months, our monthly visits had become strained. Sophia seemed distant, distracted, like her mind was somewhere else entirely. When I'd ask about her classes or her friends, she'd give short answers and change the subject. When I'd mention memories of her mother, she'd go completely quiet. I'd chalked it up to senior year stress. She was applying to graduate programs, dealing with job interviews, probably worried about the future. It was natural for a young woman to pull away from her father as she prepared to enter the real world. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. The phone call that should have warned me. The night before graduation, I called Sophia to confirm our plans. Usually, I'd pick her up at her dorm, we'd have breakfast together, and then head to the ceremony. But when I called, her voice sounded strange, tight and controlled in a way I'd never heard before. "Dad, there's been a change of plans. I need to meet you directly at the auditorium tomorrow." "Is everything okay, sweetheart? Are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine. I have some things I need to take care of in the morning, before the ceremony." "What kind of things? Maybe I can help." "No." The word came out sharp, almost harsh. "Dad, please, just meet me at the auditorium. I'll be in the front row with the other graduates." I wanted to push, to ask more questions, but something in her tone warned me off. "Okay, Sophia, whatever you need. I'll see you there." After we hung up, I sat in my living room staring at the phone. In 4 years of college, Sophia had never refused to let me pick her up. She'd never sounded so cold. But I convinced myself it was just nerves. Big day, lots of emotions, probably overwhelmed with everything. If I'd known what she was really doing that morning, if I'd known she was spending those hours at the Millburn County Police Station, maybe I could have stopped what happened next. The campus buzzing with excitement. I arrived at Northwestern State at 9:30 a.m., 2 hours before the ceremony was scheduled to begin. The campus was alive with families setting up folding chairs, taking pictures by the fountain, and proudly wearing T-shirts with their graduate's name. The energy was infectious, and despite my concerns about Sophia's strange behavior, I felt my excitement returning. The auditorium was already filling up when I walked in. Dr. Patricia Henley, the head of the psychology department, spotted me immediately and walked over with a warm smile. "Mr. Castellanos, we're so honored to have you speaking today. Sophia must be incredibly proud." "I'm just grateful you asked me. This is such an important day for her. She's been one of our most dedicated students. Her work on cold case analysis has been particularly impressive. Very thorough, very methodical. She has a real gift for uncovering details that others miss. Something about the way she said it made me pause. Cold case analysis? Oh yes, she's been working on a special project this semester, reviewing old case files, looking for patterns that might have been overlooked. She's presented some fascinating findings to our faculty. Hasn't she mentioned it? No, I said slowly. She hasn't mentioned that at all. Dr. Henley's expression shifted slightly. Well, you know how students can be. Sometimes they like to surprise their families with their accomplishments. But I could see something in her eyes that suggested she was as puzzled as I was. Why hadn't Sophia told me about this project? We talked every week, and she'd never mentioned working on cold cases. Finding Sophia in the crowd. I made my way to the front of the auditorium, scanning the rows of graduating students in their black caps and gowns. When I finally spotted Sophia, my breath caught. She looked beautiful, her long, dark hair pulled back in an elegant updo, her olive complexion glowing with what should have been excitement and pride. But when our eyes met, there was no smile, no wave, no acknowledgement that this was supposed to be one of the happiest days of our lives. Instead, she stared at me with an expression I'd never seen before. It wasn't anger exactly, and it wasn't sadness. It was something colder, more analytical. Like she was studying me, evaluating me, coming to some conclusion I wasn't privy to. I raised my hand in a small wave, mouthing, "Congratulations, sweetheart." She didn't respond. She just kept staring with those dark eyes that reminded me so much of her mother's, but held none of Isabella's warmth. The student next to her leaned over and whispered something in her ear. Sophia shook her head without breaking eye contact with me. The other student glanced in my direction, then whispered something else. This time, Sophia nodded curtly and finally looked away. I spent the next hour trying to catch her eye again, but she kept her gaze fixed straight ahead or down at her hands, which I noticed were clenched tightly in her lap. Every few minutes, she would check her phone, and each time she did, her jaw would tighten a little more. The speech that changed everything. At 11:45, Dr. Henley took the podium to begin the ceremony. After the usual opening remarks and recognition of faculty, she introduced me to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, we're honored to have Diego Castellanos speak to our graduates today. As a respected member of our community and the proud father of one of our most accomplished students, he'll share some words about perseverance, family, and the strength we find in each other during life's most challenging moments. The applause was warm and encouraging as I walked to the podium. I looked out at the sea of faces, proud parents, excited graduates, faculty members who had dedicated their lives to education. And there, in the front row, sat Sophia, her face now completely expressionless. I had practiced this speech dozens of times, but standing there looking at my daughter's cold stare, the words I'd prepared seemed suddenly inadequate. Still, I began. Thank you, Dr. Henley, and thank you to all the families and faculty who have made this day possible. 8 years ago, my family faced the kind of tragedy that changes everything. My wife, Isabella, the love of my life, and Sophia's mother, passed away suddenly from what the doctors told us was a massive heart attack. I paused, expecting to see some emotion in Sophia's face at the mention of her mother. Instead, her expression had grown even colder, if that was possible. Isabella was only 41 years old. She was healthy, active, full of life. Her death was completely unexpected, and it left Sophia and I devastated. But in the years since, I've watched my daughter channel her grief into something powerful and meaningful. Sophia's hands were no longer just clenched, they were shaking. Several students around her had noticed and were looking concerned. She chose to study forensic psychology, she told me, because she wanted to help other families find answers when tragedy strikes unexpectedly. She wanted to make sure that other people wouldn't have to live with the questions and uncertainties that we've lived with since losing Isabella. That's when Sophia stood up. Slowly, deliberately, like she was making a decision she had been putting off for months. Her graduation cap fell to the floor with a soft thud that somehow seemed to echo in the suddenly quiet auditorium. "Stop," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the microphone system. The murmur that rippled through the crowd was immediate. Dr. Henley half rose from her chair, but I held up a hand to indicate I could handle this. I thought maybe Sophia was having some kind of panic attack or emotional breakdown from the stress of graduation and hearing about her mother. "Sophia, sweetheart, what's wrong?" Her laugh was bitter and sharp. "What's wrong? You're standing up there talking about Mom like you cared about her, like you miss her, like you don't know exactly what happened to her?" My heart started racing. "Honey, I don't understand. Of course I cared about your mother. Of course I miss her. We both do." "No." Her voice was getting louder, more intense. "No, Dad, we don't miss her. I miss her. You got exactly what you wanted when she died." The auditorium had gone completely silent. 300 people were watching my daughter having what appeared to be a complete psychological break, and I had no idea how to help her. "Sophia, you're not making sense. You're scaring me. Please, let's just—"
"I'm scaring you?" She laughed again, but this time there were tears streaming down her face. "That's rich. That's really rich coming from you." She wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing her carefully applied makeup, but she didn't seem to care. When she looked at me again, her expression had shifted from anger to something that looked almost like pity. "You want to know what's wrong, Dad? You want to know why I can't sit here and listen to you talk about honoring Mom's memory?" I nodded, though I was terrified of what she might say next. "Because I know what you did to her. I know Mom didn't die of a heart attack. I know you killed her." The silence that followed was absolute. Not a cough, not a whisper, not even the sound of someone shifting in their chair. 300 people held their breath while my world collapsed around me. And then Sophia delivered the final blow. "I hate you. I hate you, and I never want to see you again." She grabbed her purse from under her chair and ran toward the exit, pushing past other students and faculty members who tried to stop her. The heavy auditorium door slammed behind her with the bang that seemed to wake everyone from their shocked stupor. The longest 5 minutes of my life. For a moment, I just stood there at the podium, gripping the edges with white knuckles, trying to process what had just happened. My daughter, my sweet, intelligent, loving daughter, had just accused me of murder in front of 300 people. The whisper started slowly, then grew louder. I could hear fragments of conversations. "Did he say he killed her mother? Should someone call the police? That poor girl, she must be having a breakdown." Dr. Henley was at my side in seconds. "Mr. Castellanos, perhaps we should—" "No," I said, my voice hoarse but steady. "No, these students deserve their graduation ceremony. They've worked too hard to have it ruined by whatever this is." I stepped back to the microphone, surprised that my hands had stopped shaking. "I apologize to everyone for that interruption. My daughter she's been under a lot of stress with graduation and job interviews. Sometimes grief affects us in ways we don't expect, even years later." I looked out at the crowd, seeing a mixture of sympathy, confusion, and concern. What I was trying to say before is that life will throw unexpected challenges at all of you. Some of them will be small, and some of them will feel impossible to overcome. But if you remember to lean on the people who love you, to seek truth even when it's difficult, and to never give up on the relationships that matter most, you'll find the strength to get through anything. My voice broke slightly on the last words, but I managed to finish. Congratulations to the class of 2023. You should all be incredibly proud of what you have accomplished." The applause was hesitant at first, but then grew stronger. I shook hands with Dr. Henley and the other faculty members, accepted condolences from other parents who assumed Sophia had simply had an emotional breakdown, and somehow made it to my car in the parking lot without completely falling apart. But once I was alone in my car, the magnitude of what had happened hit me like a physical blow. My daughter thought I had murdered her mother. Not only did she think it, she believed it strongly enough to destroy our relationship and humiliate both of us in public. The drive home that felt like a lifetime. The 3-hour drive back to Riverside Falls was the longest of my life. I kept replaying Sophia's words, "I know you killed her." The certainty in her voice, the pain in her eyes, the way she'd said she was not that scared little girl anymore. What has she found? What does she think she knew? I thought back to the night Isabella died. It had been a Tuesday in March 8 years ago. Isabella had been complaining of chest pains for about 2 weeks, but she'd insisted it was just stress from her job as a high school counselor. The school had been dealing with budget cuts, and she'd been working extra hours trying to help students whose programs were being eliminated. That Tuesday night, we'd had dinner together, just the 3 of us, like always. Isabella had seemed tired but not unwell. We'd watched a movie, helped Sophia with her algebra homework, and gone to bed around 10 p.m. I woke up the next morning around 6:30 to find Isabella still in bed. That was unusual. She often slept in when she was stressed. But when I tried to wake her at 7 so she wouldn't be late for work, she didn't respond. I remembered the panic, the frantic phone call to 911, the paramedics working on her for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. I remember Sophia standing in the doorway in her pajamas, asking over and over again why Mommy wouldn't wake up. The cause of death was listed as sudden cardiac arrest, likely caused by an undiagnosed heart condition. Dr. Martinez Rodriguez, our family physician, had explained that sometimes these things just happened, especially in people with high-stress jobs. There was no autopsy because there was no reason to suspect anything other than natural causes. So what had changed? What did Sophia discover that made her think Isabella's death was anything other than a tragic medical event? The phone call that changed everything. I was about 20 minutes from home when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was local to Northwestern State.
Mr. Castellanos? Yes? This is Detective Sarah Chen with the Millbrook County Sheriff's Department. I'm calling about your daughter, Sophia Castellanos. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. Is she hurt? Was there an accident after she left the ceremony? No, sir, she's not hurt. But she came to our office this morning, before your graduation ceremony. She's requested that we reopen the investigation into your wife's death. I had to pull over. The world was spinning around me, and I couldn't trust myself to keep driving safely. Detective, I don't understand. There was no investigation into my wife's death. Isabella died of natural causes 8 years ago. Heart attack. The death certificate? Yes, sir, I have the death certificate right here. Natural causes, signed by Dr. Martin Rodriguez, but your daughter has presented us with some concerning information. What kind of information? I can't go into all the details over the phone, Mr. Castellanos, but she's provided us with medical records, insurance documents, and what she claims is evidence that your wife may have been poisoned. The word hit me like a physical blow. Poisoned? That's impossible. Detective, I think my daughter may be having some kind of psychological episode. The stress of graduation, losing her mother at such a young age. Sir, I understand this is difficult to hear, but your daughter has been very thorough in her research. She's presented us with documentation going back several months. This doesn't appear to be a sudden emotional reaction. Several months? While I'd been worried about her seeming distant during our visits, she'd been building a case against me for murdering my mother. Detective, can I speak with Sophia? Can I come to the station? She's specifically requested that we not allow you to contact her at this time, And Mr. Castellanos, I have to advise you not to leave the area while we review her allegations. Are you saying I'm a suspect? I'm saying we need to look into this matter before we can determine how to proceed. I'll be in touch within the next 48 hours. After she hung up, I sat in my car on the side of the road for another 30 minutes, trying to make sense of what was happening. My daughter thought I was a murderer. The police were reopening a case that had never been a case. And somewhere in Northwestern State, Sophia was probably giving them a detailed explanation of why she believed her own father had killed her mother. The house full of memories and secrets. When I finally made it home, the house felt different. Everything looked exactly the same. The family photos on the mantel, Isabella's reading chair in the corner where she used to grade papers, Sophia's high school graduation picture on the kitchen counter. But now, instead of feeling like cherished memories, they felt like evidence in a crime I didn't even know had been committed. I walked through each room slowly, trying to see everything through Sophia's eyes. What had she noticed that I'd missed? What details had she uncovered during her cold case analysis that Dr. Henley had mentioned? In the master bedroom, I opened Isabella's jewelry box, something I still couldn't bring myself to pack away, even after 8 years. Her wedding ring was there, along with the pearl earrings I'd given her for our 10th anniversary, the silver bracelet Sophia had picked out for Mother's Day, and all the other small treasures she'd accumulated over the years. Underneath the jewelry was a small stack of papers I'd never seen before. Medical bills from Isabella's last few doctor visits, insurance forms, the death certificate I'd kept but never looked at again after the funeral. I spread them out on the bed, looking for anything that might seem suspicious to someone with Sophia's training in forensic psychology. The medical bills were routine: annual physical, a follow-up for her blood pressure medication, a visit for the chest pains she'd been experiencing. Nothing unusual there. The insurance paperwork was standard too, though I noticed we'd increased our insurance life insurance coverage about a year before Isabella died. I remembered that. We were worried about Sophia's college expenses and wanted to make sure she'd be taken care of if anything happened to either of us. But then I found something that made my blood run cold. Underneath the death certificate was a small appointment card I'd never seen before. Dr. Marcus Webb, internal medicine, with a date from 3 weeks before Isabella died. Written on the back in Isabella's careful handwriting, "Don't tell Diego. Need answers about the dizzy spells." Don't tell Diego. My wife had been seeing another doctor without telling me. She'd been having symptoms I didn't even know about. And somehow Sophia had found out. The night that never ended. I spent the rest of the evening going through everything in the house with new eyes. In Isabella's desk, I found a small appointment book I'd never paid attention to before. Most of the entries were routine: school meetings, dentist appointments, dinner plans with friends. But in the weeks leading up to her death, there were several entries I didn't recognize. M.W., 2 p.m., appeared 3 times in the month before she died. M.W. had to be Dr. Marcus Webb. But why the secrecy? Why hadn't she told me she was concerned enough to see a specialist? In her dresser drawer, behind a stack of old greeting cards, I found something even more disturbing. A small notebook with Isabella's handwriting, documenting symptoms I'd never known she was experiencing. Dizziness after dinner, Tuesday, Wednesday. Nausea in the morning, getting worse. Weird taste in my mouth after Diego's coffee. After Diego's coffee.
"Detective," I said carefully, "there's something else you need to consider. Sophia is graduating with a degree in forensic psychology. She's been working on cold case analysis projects. She would know exactly what kind of evidence would be needed to build a case like this." "You're suggesting your daughter fabricated evidence to frame you for her mother's murder?" When she said it out loud like that, it sounded insane. But I nodded. "I think she killed Isabella 8 years ago, and she's been planning to pin it on me ever since." The other detective, who introduced himself as Detective Rodriguez, had been quietly examining the family photos on my dresser. "Mr. Castellanos, can you walk us through the day your wife died? Everything you remember? The night that destroyed our family." I sat down in Isabella's chair, the same one where I'd made my horrible realization just hours earlier, and tried to reconstruct that terrible Tuesday night 8 years ago. It was March 15th, 2016, a normal Tuesday. Isabella came home from work around 4:30. She was a guidance counselor at Roosevelt High School. Sophia got home from her friend Maya's house around 5. "How did your wife seem when she came home?" "Tired, but not unusually so. She had been dealing with a lot of stress at work, budget cuts, having to tell kids their favorite programs were being eliminated. She had been having those chest pains for a couple of weeks, but Dr. Rodriguez had said it was probably stress-related." Detective Chen made notes. "What happened that evening?" "We had dinner together. Just spaghetti and salad, nothing fancy. Isabella seemed fine during dinner. We talked about Sophia's upcoming spring break, made plans for a family trip to the coast." I paused, remembering. Actually, now that I think about it, Isabella did mention feeling nauseous after dinner. She said maybe she'd eaten too fast. Sophia offered to make her some tea. The detectives exchanged glances. "Your daughter made tea for her mother?" "Yes, Sophia was always thoughtful like that. She brought Isabella a cup of chamomile tea and insisted she drink it all because it would help with the nausea." Detective Rodriguez leaned forward. "Do you remember what happened after your wife drank the tea?" "She said she felt better. We watched a movie together, some romantic comedy Isabella had recorded. Sophia did homework at the kitchen table while we watched. Around 10 o'clock, we all went to bed." "And the next morning?" The familiar pain of that memory washed over me. "I woke up around 6:30. Isabella was still sleeping, which was unusual, but when I tried to wake her at 7, she wouldn't respond. I called 911, but it was too late. The paramedics said she'd probably been dead for hours." Detective Chen was writing rapidly. "Where was Sophia during all of this?" "She was getting ready for school. She came into our bedroom when she heard me on the phone with 911. She was the one who started crying and asking why Mommy wouldn't wake up." But as I said those words, a different memory surfaced. I remembered now that Sophia's reaction hadn't been immediate shock. When she first saw the paramedics working on Isabella, she'd stood in the doorway for several seconds, just watching. It was only when she noticed me looking at her that she'd started crying. At the time, I thought she was in shock. Now I wondered if she'd been waiting to see what her reaction should be. The doctor who held the answers. At 8 a.m. sharp, Detective Chen called Dr. Marcus Webb's office. It took some convincing, but his receptionist agreed to have him call back immediately regarding a police investigation. Dr. Webb returned the call within 20 minutes, and Detective Chen put it on speaker. "Dr. Webb, this is Detective Chen with Millbrook County Sheriff's Department. We're investigating the death of Isabella Castellanos, who I understand was a patient of yours in March 2016. "Yes, I remember Mrs. Castellanos very well. Tragic case. She came to me because she was convinced someone was poisoning her." My blood turned to ice. Isabella had been right. "Can you tell us about her visits?" "She came to see me 3 times in the month before she died. She'd been experiencing symptoms consistent with chronic poisoning. Nausea, dizziness, metallic taste in her mouth, heart palpitations. She brought me a detailed log of when these symptoms occurred." "Did she have suspicions about who might be poisoning her?" Dr. Webb was quiet for a moment. "She was very reluctant to say directly, but she mentioned that the symptoms seemed to occur after consuming food or beverages prepared by family members. She was particularly concerned about her teenage daughter's behavior." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "Her daughter?" "Mrs. Castellanos said her daughter had been acting strangely, asking unusual questions about household cleaners, researching poisons online for what she claimed were school projects. The daughter had also been insisting on preparing special meals and drinks for her mother, claiming she wanted to take care of her. Detective Rodriguez leaned toward the phone. "Dr. Webb, did you run any tests?" "I did a comprehensive toxicology screen on her blood and urine samples. I found traces of ricin, a highly toxic substance derived from castor beans. The levels weren't immediately lethal, but with continued exposure, they would eventually cause organ failure." "Did you share these results with Mrs. Castellanos?" "I called her the day before she died to give her the results. I told her she needed to get away from whoever was poisoning her immediately and contact the police. She said she would, but apparently she never got the chance."
After Dr. Webb hung up, the room was silent for a long time. Finally, Detective Chen spoke. "Mr. Castellanos, it appears your wife was being slowly poisoned with ricin, and she suspected your daughter was responsible." I couldn't speak. The woman I'd loved and lost, the woman I'd grieved for 8 years, had died knowing that her own child was killing her, and she'd never been able to tell me. The search for more evidence. Detective Rodriguez called for a warrant to search Sophia's childhood bedroom and any other areas of the house she'd had access to. While we waited, Detective Chen asked me more questions about Sophia's behavior in the months before and after Isabella's death. "Did you notice any changes in her behavior?" "She'd been going through a rebellious phase, fighting with us about rules, staying out late, hanging around with older kids. Isabella was being strict with her, setting boundaries Sophia didn't like." "Did they fight often?" "More than usual, yes. Sophia kept saying Isabella was ruining her life, that she wished she would just disappear and leave her alone." I thought about all the times I dismissed Sophia's anger as normal teenage behavior. How many of those fights had actually been a killer getting frustrated with her victim's continued existence? "What about after your wife died? How did Sophia handle the grief?" That question made me pause. Now that I think about it, Sophia seemed to adjust remarkably well. She was sad, of course, but she never seemed devastated the way I was. She took care of practical things, helped plan the funeral, even comforted me when I broke down. "Did she show interest in the cause of death investigation?" "There wasn't really an investigation. Dr. Rodriguez said it was natural causes, sudden cardiac arrest. But Sophia did ask a lot of questions about the death certificate, about whether there would be an autopsy. She seemed relieved when I told her there wouldn't be one." The warrant arrived at 10 a.m. Officer Martinez began a systematic search of Sophia's room, while Detective Chen and I went through the rest of the house, looking for anything that might have been used to prepare or administer ricin. In the basement, in a storage box labeled Sophia's School Projects, we found a treasure trove of evidence. Science fair projects on plant toxins, research papers on undetectable poisons, and most damning of all, a detailed timeline titled Project Liberation, with dates corresponding to Isabella's symptoms and doctor visits. But it was what Officer Martinez found in Sophia's bedroom that sealed the case. The evidence hidden in plain sight. Officer Martinez called us upstairs with excitement in her voice. "You need to see this." In the back of Sophia's closet, behind a stack of old yearbooks, she'd found a small wooden box. Inside were vials of what appeared to be plant extracts, detailed notes on ricin preparation and dosing, and most shocking of all, a journal documenting every step of Isabella's murder. Detective Chen read from the journal out loud. Day 1. Started adding small amounts to Mom's morning coffee. She didn't notice any taste difference. Day 5. Symptoms starting. Nausea and dizziness. She thinks it's stress from work. Perfect. Day 12. She's getting suspicious. Need to be more careful about when and how I administer doses. Day 18. She mentioned going to see another doctor. This could be a problem. May need to accelerate timeline. Day 23. Dr. Webb called her with test results. She knows. Have to finish this tonight.
The final entry was dated March 15, 2016, the night Isabella died. Made her chamomile tea with double dose. She drank it all because she trusts me. It should be enough to cause cardiac arrest within a few hours. By morning, she'll be gone, and Dad will be completely dependent on me. Everything is going according to plan. I had to sit down. My teenage daughter had coldly, systematically murdered her own mother over the course of a month, documenting each step like it was a science experiment. "There's more," Officer Martinez said, pulling out another notebook. "This one is more recent. It's her plan to frame you." Detective Rodriguez took the notebook and began reading. Phase 1, complete college and gain credibility in forensic psychology. Phase 2, plant evidence in Dad's house to support poisoning theory. Phase 3, discover evidence during graduation weekend and bring it to police. Phase 4, watch Dad get convicted for Mom's murder while I inherit everything and start my new life. The notebook contained detailed plans for forging Isabella's handwriting, creating fake medical appointments, and even coaching herself on how to react during the graduation ceremony to make her accusation seem spontaneous and emotional rather than calculated. The arrest. Within an hour, Detective Chen had issued a BOLO alert for Sophia. They found her at a motel 30 miles outside of town, calmly packing her belongings as if she'd been expecting this moment for years. Detective Chen called me from the arrest scene. "Mr. Castellanos, we have her in custody. She's not denying anything. In fact, she seems almost relieved that it's over." Did she say why? Why did she kill her own mother? She said Isabella was standing in the way of her freedom, that your wife's rules and expectations were preventing her from living the life she wanted. She said killing her was easier than waiting for her to die naturally. The casual cruelty of that statement took my breath away. Sophia had killed Isabella not in a moment of rage or passion, but simply because she found her mother inconvenient.
2 days later, Sophia agreed to meet with me at the county jail. She sat across from me in the visiting room wearing an orange jumpsuit, looking smaller than I remembered, but completely calm. "Hello, Dad," she said, as if we were meeting for coffee. "Sophia, why? I need to understand why you did this." She tilted her head, studying me with the same analytical expression I'd seen at her graduation. "You really don't know, do you? You never saw what she was really like. Your mother loved you. We both loved you. Mom didn't love me. She loved controlling me. Every friend I wanted to make, every place I wanted to go, every choice I wanted to make for myself, she had to approve it first. She was suffocating me. She was being a parent, Sophia. She was trying to keep you safe." Sophia laughed, a cold sound that reminded me of her outburst at graduation. Safe. She was keeping me prisoner. I was 14 years old and I couldn't even choose what to wear to school without her opinion. "So you killed her?" "I solved the problem," she said matter-of-factly, "and it worked perfectly for 8 years. We were happy, weren't we? Just you and me, no one telling us what to do or how to live." The realization hit me like a physical blow. "You've been manipulating me this whole time, making me think we were grieving together, that we were all each other had left." "Of course I was. You were so grateful to have me, so afraid of losing me too. You gave me everything I wanted, never questioned anything I did. It was the perfect arrangement." "Until you decided to frame me for murder?" She shrugged. "I needed to start my own life eventually. The insurance money and inheritance would give me a nice head start. And frankly, Dad, you were starting to get a little too clingy. I needed space." I stared at this person who looked like my daughter, but spoke like a complete stranger. "Do you feel anything? Any remorse? Any guilt? Any love for the people you've destroyed?" Sophia considered the question seriously. "No, not really. I feel Satisfied, I guess. I identified problems in my life, and I solved them efficiently. Most people are too weak or too sentimental to do what needs to be done. Your mother wasn't a problem, Sophia. She was a person. She loved you. She was an obstacle, Sophia corrected, and now she's gone. The trial. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented the evidence we'd found in devastating detail. The journal documenting Isabella's murder, the timeline showing Sophia's planning, the scientific research she'd done on ricin poisoning, and Dr. Webb's testimony about Isabella's suspicions. Sophia's defense attorney tried to argue that she'd been a troubled teenager acting out of psychological trauma, but the premeditation was too clear, the documentation too thorough, and the subsequent years of manipulation too calculated. The most chilling moment came when Sophia testified in her own defense. She showed no emotion as she described preparing the poison, no remorse when she talked about watching Isabella die, and no recognition that she had done anything wrong. I was 14 years old and trapped in an intolerable situation, she told the jury calmly. I found a solution that worked. I don't understand why everyone is so upset about it. When asked about her plan to frame me, she was equally matter-of-fact. I needed to move on with my life. It seemed like the most efficient way to tie up loose ends. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning a guilty verdict on charges of first-degree murder and conspiracy. The judge sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The aftermath. In the months following the trial, I tried to piece together the life I'd been living without knowing it. I'd spent 8 years grieving my wife while living with her killer. I'd supported, loved, and trusted the person who had not only murdered Isabella, but had been planning to destroy me as well. The hardest part wasn't even the betrayal. It was realizing that Sophia was right about one thing. Those 8 years had been good years for us. Without Isabella's structure and boundaries, I had been more permissive, more indulgent, more focused on making Sophia happy than on raising her properly. I had enabled a killer without even knowing it. Dr. Patricia Henley from Northwestern State called me a few weeks after the trial. Mr. Castellanos, I wanted you to know that we've reviewed Sophia's academic work in light of recent events. Her cold case analysis project was actually focused on your wife's death. She'd been building her case against you for her entire senior year. Did anyone suspect anything? In hindsight, there were red flags. Her lack of emotional investment in the cases, her focus on how to manipulate evidence rather than uncover truth. But she was brilliant, and she hid her true nature very well. I asked the question that had been haunting me. Dr. Henley, in your professional opinion, is there anything I could have done differently? Any way I could have seen what she really was? Her answer was both comforting and terrifying. Mr. Castellanos, from what I've learned about your daughter, I don't think anyone could have seen through her deception. She's what we call a successful psychopath, someone who can mimic normal human emotions and relationships perfectly while feeling nothing themselves. You weren't living with your daughter for 8 years. You were living with a master manipulator who was using you as cover while she planned her next move.
Sophia writes to me from prison regularly. Her letters are chatty, newsy, as if she's away at summer camp rather than serving a life sentence for murder. She tells me about the other inmates, complains about the food, asks me to send books and magazines. She never acknowledges what she did. She never apologizes. She never shows any understanding of the pain she's caused. In her most recent letter, she wrote, "Dad, I know you're upset with me right now, but I hope you'll visit soon. I miss our talks, and I have some ideas about appealing my conviction that I'd like to discuss with you.
I've been researching legal precedents for overturning verdicts based on prosecutorial misconduct. I think we have a good chance. It's been 2 years since the trial ended. I've moved to a smaller town about 50 miles from Riverside Falls. Started over in a place where no one knows my story. I see a therapist regularly, someone who specializes in helping family members of violent criminals. I've also started volunteering with a support group for families of murder victims. It's helped me process not only losing Isabella, but losing the daughter I thought I had. In many ways, I'm grieving 2 deaths: the woman who was murdered and the child who never really existed. The hardest part is accepting that I may never fully understand why this happened to us. There's no trauma in Sophia's childhood that explains her actions, no abuse or neglect that drove her to murder. She killed Isabella simply because she found her inconvenient, and she tried to frame me simply because it served her purposes. Some evil doesn't have an explanation. Some people are just broken in ways that can't be fixed or understood. The woman I should have protected. I think about Isabella every day. Not just the way she died, but the way she lived. The way she tried to protect everyone around her, including me. She knew Sophia was dangerous, but she didn't tell me because she was probably trying to find a way to get help for our daughter without destroying our family. Even when she was being poisoned, even when she suspected her own child was trying to kill her, Isabella's first instinct was to protect rather than accuse. She went to Dr. Webb secretly because she was hoping there was another explanation, hoping she was wrong about Sophia. She died trying to shield me from a truth that would have saved her life. I visit her grave every week now, something I'd stopped doing in the years when I was focused on Sophia's needs and future. I tell her about the trial, about the evidence we found, about how sorry I am that I didn't see what was happening to her. And sometimes, when the wind is just right and the cemetery is quiet, I swear I can feel her presence. Not angry or accusing, but sad for all of us, even for Sophia, the daughter who chose evil over love. The final truth. People often ask me if I hate Sophia for what she did. The answer's complicated. I hate the actions she took, the lies she told, the years of manipulation and deception, but I can't quite bring myself to hate the person who used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms, who made me Father's Day cards with crooked hearts, who used to tell me she wanted to grow up to be just like me. The tragedy isn't just that Sophia killed Isabella. It's that the little girl I loved so much never really existed. She was always a carefully constructed mask designed to get what she wanted from the people around her. I don't know if she was born that way or if something happened to make her that way. I don't know if there were warning signs I should have caught or interventions that might have made a difference. What I do know is that evil can wear the face of someone you love. It can sit at your dinner table for years, hug you goodnight and tell you it loves you, all while planning your destruction. My daughter screamed, "I hate you," in front of 300 people at her graduation ceremony. At the time, I thought it was the worst thing she could do to me. I was wrong. The worst thing she did was make me love a person who never existed while she murdered the person who loved me most. But I survived. And maybe that's the only victory that matters in a story like this one. Closing message. If you've watched this story to the end, thank you for taking this journey with me. It's not a happy story, and it doesn't have the kind of ending where everything works out perfectly, but it is a true story about how evil can hide in plain sight, how manipulation can masquerade as love, and how sometimes the people we trust most are the ones capable of causing us the greatest harm. If you recognize warning signs in your own life, people who seem to lack genuine empathy, who manipulate others for personal gain, who show no remorse for hurting people. Trust your instincts. Don't make excuses for behavior that feels wrong, even if it's coming from someone you love. And if you're dealing with the aftermath of betrayal by someone you trusted, know that healing is possible. It takes time, it takes help, and it takes the courage to face difficult truths about people you loved. But you can rebuild your life even after it's been shattered by someone you never saw coming. Isabella deserved better from both of us. But at least now, finally, she has justice. Thank you for listening. And remember to subscribe if this story resonated with you. Sometimes sharing our darkest moments helps others feel less alone in theirs.